This video is going to serve as an introduction to parent functions. A parent function is the simplest form of a group of functions. So as you can see here, y equals x is much more simple looking than y equals negative 3 halves x plus 10 thirds. Or even this other one down below, which is even more complicated. This, by the way, is the parent function of linear functions. The reason parent functions are so important is they can often tell you the general shape or characteristics of the particular group of functions. So for example, here again I wrote y equals x, which is the parent function for linear functions, and the graph looks something like this. It's just a straight line. And from this, we can tell that all linear functions will be a straight line. For the most part, they'll have a slope, and they'll have one x-intercept and one y-intercept. The domain is negative infinity to positive infinity, or all real numbers, and the range is also negative infinity to positive infinity, or all real numbers. Another example is the parent function y equals x squared. This is the simplest form of what we will call quadratic functions. We will study these more in depth in a couple weeks, but for now, from just looking at this graph of the parent function, y equals x squared, we can see that the shape is what's called a parabola. It looks like a U. It has a vertex, which is this point right here, where the bottom of the U, essentially. We will see that they have 1 or 2 or 0 x-intercepts, depending on where the U actually is on the coordinate plane. The domain will always be all real numbers, but the range is going to be restricted. In this particular case of the parent function, the range is from 0 to infinity. But we will eventually see that when we make it more complicated, the range will change. But it's important that the range is restricted. It's not all real numbers. At the bottom, I've added just some other examples of quadratic functions that are not the parent function. They are more complicated quadratic functions. But as you can see, they have the same general shape, even if it's been pushed up, flipped over, again flipped over, or pushed up and moved to the left. So this is what you guys need to do. Open Desmos. If you haven't actually downloaded it from the App Store, you may need to download it. I then want you to use Desmos to graph each parent function. And in a moment, I will show you a demonstration on how to use Desmos. But graph each parent function on the app, then sketch a graph of what you see on your chart. From the graph you see on the app, then identify the domain and range of each parent function and write that down on your chart as well. When you open Desmos, this is what you will see. You can see it has a graph. This is where your graph will show up. It has this area on the left where you're going to enter your equations. And then there's a series of numbers, operations, and more operations over here. So what you're going to do is you always want to start with y and then the equals button. So you'll do click y and then equals and then whatever else you see. So in the linear function, you'll hit just y equals x. And the graph you'll see show up over here on the right. You can then delete it out using this button over here and enter all of your other graphs individually. Some things you might need is the square root button is down here in the bottom row. When you're trying to do 2 to the x, you'll hit 2 and this a raised to the b button, then x. If you're trying to do x squared, you'll click x and then this a squared button, and that will give you x squared. Fractions can be done using the division button. And absolute value is going to need to use this button over here that says functions. When you click on functions, you'll see a pop-up, and it will pop up right here. And then there's going to be 3 tabs at the top. You want to click this tab on the right that says miscellaneous. And then in the second row, there will be a button that says ABS. That's going to give you the absolute value. All right, good luck.